What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where every single week I, Graham Jason Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking the latest installment in the WWE 24 series, Batista Dream Chaser. I've been really looking forward to this since it was announced maybe late last week that it was happening. I don't think they announced this a few months ago with the rest of the 24 specials. They might have, I don't remember. I know they announced 24 specials on Becky Lynch and Ronda, and the WrestleMania 34 one. And all of them were great, don't get me wrong. I've talked about all of them here before on Network and Chill. Cheap plug, be sure to check them out at your leisure, because all three were tremendous. In fact, every 24 special I've seen over the last 4 or 5 years has been tremendous. This was no exception. Personally, one of my favorites, just being the big Batista fan that I am, and I absolutely loved the documentaries that WWE put together for Batista. The first one being about almost exactly 10 years ago. They did one on Batista, and I might have reviewed it here for the channel a long time ago. I don't remember. But it was the Batista Unleashed DVD that came out in late 2009 that kind of chronicled his career and life story up until 2009, late 2008. They came out with a second one, the Batista I Walk Alone DVD. They might have had the same title, I don't remember, but both are available on the network. The two documentary portions are on the network if you want to check them out, under the Beyond the Ring specials, I believe. But yeah, they came out with the second one right after Batista left in 2014, which I thought was weird, because he came back in January of 2014. They put out the DVD on him in June, right after he quit in storyline, right after he left that last time, and he wasn't back until just this past year. Or I guess late last year if you count SmackDown 1000. But anyway, those two pieces of business were great. And I don't think you have to watch those to enjoy this one, because everything they cover in those two specials, they cover here too. But it's not one of those deals where, if you've seen the other two Batista specials, this one isn't worth watching because they already cover his childhood. They cover his childhood in the first one, and then again here, but they cover different sides of it. And it's cool to hear from Batista talking about it now that he's at a different place in his life. Again, that was 10 years ago. A lot has changed. Batista's gone on to do a lot of cool things in the film industry, the movie industry, whatever, the movie business. So, I thought this was great, start to finish. So we kick it off here with Batista walking on stage at WrestleMania 35, kind of getting a lay of the land at WrestleMania 35 in New Jersey, which I was at. I will never, pass up an opportunity to bring that up, because I was very happy that I got to see, of all the things I saw at WrestleMania this year, I was very happy that I got to see Batista's last match. Again, I've been a big Batista fan since I started watching 11 years ago. I got to meet the man about 2 years ago. I might meet him again later on this year at Rhode Island Comic-Con. And to see his final match, and I know he's never coming back from it either, because I would always be able to say, I saw Goldberg's last match too at WrestleMania 33. And then obviously that wasn't the case, because he came back for Super Showdown in June of this year. But anyway, I enjoyed the match. But we'll talk more about that at the end of the special here, at the end of the 24. Because this whole thing kind of leads up to his WrestleMania 35 match with Triple H in New Jersey. So to kick it off, after we get the brief intro on this Dream Chaser edition of 24 with Batista, he talks about the origin of his tattoos. He's gotten a lot of new tattoos since we last saw him in 2014. Talks about how he's a very passive, calm person, very, very nice and laid back. But if you get him angry, he will not hold back and punch you in the face if need be. And then the interviewer asks Batista, what's the story of Dave Batista? And he says, hey, I'm just a kid chasing my dreams. And I feel proud to be where I am at here today. So we see Batista, and they kind of go back and forth between his childhood and his career 10 years ago, and they don't miss out on anything. They talk about everything here. Anything of importance, really. From when he started out, from where he grew up and stuff in Washington, D.C., up until the WrestleMania match. And even his last run of the company in 2010, leaving in 2010, quitting in 2014. So anyway, we see Batista on set for My Spy, a movie I think that's coming out later on this year. It's a comedy, I believe. And we see, I think his name is Ken Jeong? I don't know his name exactly, but I think he's the dude from maybe The Hangover. I know he was in that movie with Jeremy Piven that came out about 10 years ago. He was on Raw 10 years ago with Jeremy Piven. The Good Deeds, the Damaged Goods, something The Goods. I think it might have been called The Goods, something like that. But he praises Batista, says he loves working with him. And then we hear about Batista's childhood. So he talks about how it was really rough growing up. It was very dangerous in DC, and it still is today, but even more so back 20, 30 years ago. And he had no connection with his dad. It was only him, his sister, and his mom. He remembers times where it was just him, himself, and his mom. Or himself, his sister, and his mom sharing one bed in this crappy old apartment because that was all they could afford at that point. That was all they could afford when Batista was just growing up, just starting to kind of get older and whatnot. So he had a lot of issues fitting in due to being very introverted. He's a very introverted person. He's not all that social, and as a result, he wasn't really all that comfortable in school. He hated school, and it really wasn't until he started hitting the gym around 15, 16, 17 in his mid-teenage years that he started to feel comfortable in his own skin. And then he started bouncing at 17. And again, a lot of this is covered in the first documentary and his book, which I had the opportunity to read. It was one of the first wrestling autobiographies I read. About 10 years ago, I did a book report on it, and I told him that when I met him 2 years ago, and he seemed to be pretty flattered by that, because I was very proud of my book report that I did on Dave Batista in my freshman year of high school. Anyway, so he talks about bouncing at the age of 17, and this guy was huge. Batista was a fucking animal, no pun intended, and he still is today, but like back then, this guy he literally looked like Mason Ryan. Now, I know Mason Ryan and Batista, they have a lot of similar attributes, especially when Mason Ryan first arrived in the WWE scene about 8-9 years ago. But he really looked like Batista. Batista really looked like Mason Ryan, rather, when he first started, lifting weights and bouncing and all that other stuff. He got into a lot of fights, and he got in jail one time. He was actually imprisoned at one point for nothing too serious, but just fights and stuff like that. And he knew, okay, this is not where I belong. I don't belong in jail. This is not where I should be. And that sounds like a very logical thing to think, a very logical thing to say, but he had a tough time fitting in and finding out where he belonged in the world. And he knew, okay, jail is not where I should be. I belong in a bigger, better place than this. And he says that it wasn't until he had kids with his first wife, I think her name was Angie, which I remember from the first. It wasn't until I had kids that I really felt I got straightened out. Because you have someone relying on you. You're not relying on anyone else, really, at that point. They're relying on you. And he kind of got his shit straight after that. And so he trained with the Wild Samoans to break into the wrestling business. Because I think someone turned him on to it. I forgot what he said exactly or how exactly he started in wrestling. But he stumbled into wrestling. He realized that, okay, my calling, is wrestling. He didn't really realize that until he signed with OVW, the then WWE developmental territory in the early 2000s. He realized at that point, okay, I'm good at this. This is what I was born to do. And obviously, acting too, and he would not realize that until years later. In addition to kind of just overall performing and entertaining audiences and stuff like that. And then he said that signing with WWE was life-changing. He got his first check, and he had no idea what to do with it. It was probably the most amount of money, easily the most amount of money he had ever seen in his life up to that point. And it was a weird transition for him because he went from making no money to a lot of money very, very quickly, too. Triple H took him under his wing, and around 2002, and we see this great soundbite, this great clip from Bite This, that old talk show that WWE used to do about 15 years ago, with Triple H and Ric Flair, and we see Triple H, and this was before Batista ever debuted. Just mind you, remember that. So Batista, or rather Triple H on Bite This, is saying, Batista, he seems like he really likes us a lot. He's got a bright future if he can stick it through, blah, blah, blah. And this was, I think, according to the timestamp, it said March of 2002. Batista didn't even debut on the main roster, so they must have gotten a question from a fan who knew of Batista's work in developmental, and I thought that was really cool. So Batista says Triple H knew that Dave loved the business, and that he saw that, he realized that he wanted to take him under his wing. So, and then he said that he just wasn't ready. He wasn't ready until, Evolution came about, because he wasn't ready to be on the main roster. He would be backstage having trouble shaking people's hands and stuff like that. But they took off in Evolution. Evolution was an immediate success. And he started riding with Triple H and Ric Flair and on the road, being together all the time really helped Dave find himself, kind of come into his own as a performer, as a wrestler, as an entertainer in WWE. And Triple H, when the time came For all the shit that is said about Triple H, and sometimes rightfully so when it comes to Booker T and a lot of others, Triple H made Batista a star when the time was right. He didn't beat Batista at WrestleMania. He didn't hinder his popularity. Not only did he put him over at WrestleMania, Triple H put over Batista on 3 consecutive pay-per-views. At WrestleMania 21, Backlash 05, and then the Vengeance pay-per-view inside Hell in the Cell. 3 straight matches, all very good. I fucking loved the Hell in the Cell match. I still go back and watch that match, and I love it. It's one of my favorite Hell in the Cell matches of all time. That made Batista look like an absolute star, and that was completely the doing of Triple H. So, as a result, he knew that was where he kind of got started in WWE, was with Triple H, and that was when, I mean, he didn't know back then, but he knew that he wanted to end his career years ago with Triple H and putting him over, even though Triple H doesn't really need the rub, but it was very important to Batista to close out his career on his terms with the man who helped make him a star over a decade ago. So the whole story started back at SmackDown 1000, and it goes back a lot further than that. Batista has wanted this match for years, dating back to like 2014, he wanted this match. And they planted the seeds when Batista quit the WWE from that second run of the company in 2014. Remember they lost to The Shield, and they were on Raw the next night, and Triple H was like, oh, we gotta go after The Shield again. And then Batista's like, no, listen, dude, you promised me a world title match, and if I'm not gonna get it, then I quit. And he walked out, and we did not see Batista again until SmackDown 1000. So they planted the seeds then for Batista and Triple H, and they wouldn't go back to it until years later. And Batista feels very proud. He takes a lot of credit because he was the one who pushed for that. If it wasn't for Batista, the match probably would have never happened. And he talks about here, and he also mentioned this on the Chris Jericho podcast, which in my opinion is a must listen. It was awesome. Check out the Talk is Jericho interview with Batista. The third one, the first 2 were great too, from 2014 and 2017 respectively. The third one was just as great, if not even better, because he talked about how he was not originally invited to SmackDown 1000. If you can remember, it was early October, I think, if not late September. I'm pretty sure I think it was late September. Either way, Batista put out a tweet, because someone asked him, like, hey, SmackDown 1000's in Washington, D.C. Why isn't Batista going to be there? And he's like, I don't know. I have not been invited. And then, like, literally the next fucking day, he got a call saying, hey, do you want to come to the show? Do you want to be at SmackDown 1000? Do you want to come back for this monumental event? And so that was not a work. People are like, oh, you just said that as a way to build a storyline with Triple H, or just to kind of make it a bigger surprise. No, he was not actually invited. That was not a part of a work. Not everything is a work, people. That was very much real life, where for whatever reason, they did not reach out to Batista. And he felt insulted by that, he actually said on the Jericho podcast, because the guy helped make SmackDown. Batista was as big of a part of SmackDown's success as anyone. From 2005 to 2008, Batista was a SmackDown guy for at least 3 years there. Along with Edge, along with The Undertaker. Batista should have been invited from the get-go. And I said back in the fall, they're not really treating this 1000 show with the same respect that they did Raw 1000, which they advertised for literally months in advance. They didn't start hyping up SmackDown 1000 until like a week or 2 ahead of time, which I thought was very disappointing. But anyway, going back to the documentary here, he knew that when he came back, they kind of asked him what he wanted to do, and if he wanted to, I don't think have a match, but like maybe come out and cut a promo or something, but he's like, let's do something with Evolution. And again, he talked about this on the Jericho podcast. And Vince was like, why would we have Evolution? They're not a SmackDown stable. They've never appeared on SmackDown. True, but it sets the stage for Batista Triple H at WrestleMania. So, again, it didn't really make much sense within the context of SmackDown 1000, but that was completely Batista's call. So if you weren't a fan of it, you can blame Batista. But I loved it. I understand that they weren't a SmackDown stable, but hey, it got Batista on the show. Triple H wasn't a big part of SmackDown. He was way more of a Raw guy than a SmackDown guy, but he got him on the show too, so I thought it was cool. But yeah, he had anxiety beforehand. He had anxiety before he went out there because he didn't know how it would go, how the crowd would react, if he would, get his lines right. He knew he didn't want to be scripted. He sat down with Orton, Triple H, and Flair beforehand, and Triple H was nice enough to kind of give him the stage. Because we see Randy all the time. We see Triple H a lot on WWE TV. We hear from even Flair a lot on WWE TV. And, Flair obviously said something outlandish, which got a pop from the crowd. But really, that was the homecoming for Batista. Not only on SmackDown, but in his literal hometown of Washington, D.C., which meant a lot to him. So he talked for a while, And then he planted the seeds for the match at WrestleMania with Triple H. And it was meant to be a tease. There were never any concrete plans at that point to do Batista and Triple H at WrestleMania. And it wasn't until Batista goes, oh, this man right here, Triple H, has done everything there is to do in this business except beat me. And then you heard it, oh shit, like this is crazy, like the big pop, like the big ooh, ah. I popped. I thought it was a great line. I thought it was very well executed. And the crowd went nuts. And that was it. Batista knew right then and there, okay, we had to kind of survey the crowd. If they weren't going to react, if it wasn't going to go anywhere, then no match. Because it's been a long time. There's a lot of people out there who aren't familiar with the history of Batista and Triple H. That was over a decade ago, almost 15 years ago at this point. That was back in 2005 they had their feud. It's 2019. It's a long time ago. Completely new audience, but there were enough people who remembered, and even the people who weren't familiar with the original feud knew that was a match they wanted to see. And they knew it was a big fucking deal. So the crowd reacted, and he goes backstage. He went backstage after the show. He was getting ready to leave, said goodbye. We see the Undertaker. Undertaker was like really complimentary of Batista when he was saying goodbye to him, which was cool. He greeted Shane McMahon backstage, which was cool too. So Batista's getting ready to leave, and he goes, Triple H says to him, hey, get ready, motherfucker, get in shape, because we're going to WrestleMania, dude, which was really cool. And he knew right then and there, okay, the match is happening. The crowd wants to see it, and I'm ready to do this. And it's finally coming full circle, and he loved that. So then he brings up how he's been talking about wanting this match. He's been very vocal about wanting to have a match with Triple H, not just in 2019, not even just last year. Batista says, I've been petitioning, I've been pulling, I've been longing for this match since 2014. 2014! Back when he first came back in 2014. Now, I don't think it was his plan to come back for a match with Triple H in 2014 at WrestleMania 30. I think he wanted to face Triple H after, again, like I said, he left Evolution, and they wanted to do the match, or he wanted to do the match, either at SummerSlam or some point after that, but then he got hot with Guardians, and his acting career took off, and that was it. And then I remember it was some sort of thing where, I signed a 2-year deal, and they signed some sort of 2-year deal Batista did with WWE. Nothing ever came of that, because he left in 2014 to go pursue acting, and then we didn't see him again until 2018. So I don't know what happened to that. But yeah, he's been very vocal about wanting this match with Triple H for 5 years now. And it would have made sense to do 5 years ago. And I'm going to say it right here. I'm going to say it right now. I know this WrestleMania was amazing, but WrestleMania 31 should have been Batista versus Triple H, and it should have been The Undertaker versus Sting. Now, I'm killing two birds with one stone here, because I know they had talked about, WWE did on that fucking YouTube show on Sunday, WWE Reimagined. Oh, imagine if it was Undertaker versus Sting in 1999. Yeah, imagine having the fucking opportunity to do that match 4 years ago when you could have done it at WrestleMania 31, but you passed up the opportunity for whatever reason. I know I've heard rumors, I've heard people say this, I don't think it was because Undertaker didn't want to face Sting. I think it was because, and they've talked about this before, on the WWE Untold series, which I've reviewed here for the Network and Chill show about a few weeks ago. It was on the, it was a few months ago when they were talking about Sting's debut in WWE. And the story behind that, they mentioned how, and I think it was Road Dogg specifically, we wanted to do Rock and Triple H at WrestleMania 32, and the only way to do that would be to have Triple H win at WrestleMania 31, and we wanted to have him face Sting, and all this other bullshit, okay? I don't know why they didn't do that match. It made no sense. It made no sense to not do Undertaker and Sting, and then with Triple H instead, you could have done the Batista match. Now, Batista may have been busy, granted. He may have been, I don't remember. I do think Batista and Triple H would have made sense. Probably would have been a better match than what we saw at 35, because it would have been 4 years earlier. The guys are 4 years younger. The match this year I thought was good. A lot of people pooped on it, but whatever. But it should have happened at WrestleMania 31. It made sense. Maybe Batista's contract, scheduling issue, whatever. They had some conflicts there and they couldn't work it out. But coming off the tension they teased when Batista first left, or second left, I guess left for the second time in 2014, that should have been it. That it should have been then that they did the match, but they didn't, for whatever reason, whatever. So Triple H brings up how he's always wanted the match, and it couldn't happen for a variety of reasons. Batista didn't bring this up here, but he did bring this up in the interview with Jericho on Friday for Talk is Jericho. He said, yeah, all the rumors that were coming out early 2016 about Batista coming in to do a spot at WrestleMania 32. Remember after the New Day League of Nations match? Stone Cold came out, and Mick Foley and Shawn Michaels to lay out the New Day, to lay out the League of Nations and then the New Day. It was supposed to be Batista and Mick Foley's spot. There were rumors going on even well before that in early 2016 about how Batista was in talks with WWE and talks just fell through. And I'm sure Batista wanted that match at that WrestleMania, and they didn't want him to have a match. They wanted to do this fucking dumb spot. And again, it was cool for Mick, it was cool for Shawn, it was cool for Stone Cold. Batista with Shawn and Stone, like that's fucking weird. Like, pick an era. Is it Ruthless Aggression or is it Attitude Era? They went with Attitude Era. I thought Mick Foley was a perfect person for that spot. They were in Texas. It made a lot of sense, okay? It made a lot of sense. But to put Batista in there when the guy wants a match with Triple H, but he's given a fucking one-off appearance with Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels instead to face, or to beat up on the New Day, made no sense. It was dumb, so we turned it down. But he kept bringing it up. So it didn't happen at WrestleMania 31, or WrestleMania 32, or even WrestleMania 33, or WrestleMania 34. A lot of people thought it could happen at WrestleMania 34 with Batista teaming with Ronda to take on the Authorities, Triple H, and Stephanie. That would have been perfect. I'm glad it didn't happen that way, just because the Kurt match with Kurt, I mean, maybe it would have been equally excellent with Batista in there, but the Kurt match made sense, and it was great. It was the best match on that show, so I wouldn't change a damn thing about that match. But it gave Batista, I don't think, wanted to share the spotlight with Ronda. He probably wanted the one-on-one match with Triple H, not this mixed tag team match where the spotlight would be on Ronda. It would be on himself and Hunter, and they could play up their history and their feud from many years earlier. So he said to Triple H, it's either this year or I'm done. If it's not happening at WrestleMania 35, I'm done, because I'm 50 years old. I'm not getting any younger. I'm only getting further away from when I was last in the ring. It's got to be this year. And it ended up happening, obviously. But he talks about how he loves coming back. He loves seeing familiar faces backstage. But he also loves getting that like prodigal son reaction from the fans. Getting that big pop from the audience. Knowing that he's back, and they've always wanted to see him back, and kind of being the returning star in the block. He's always loved that type of thing. It's the closest type of reaction you can get to being a rock star. It's instant gratification, and he lives off of that shit. And he wanted to come back, not just for that, but for the fans and to see people and stuff like that. But that was a big reason why he wanted to come back so badly, to have that type of reaction. So then we go back to earlier on in his career, kind of rewind a little bit here. He talks about how he kind of came into his own in 2004, 2005, when he became his own person after Evolution and won the World Heavyweight Championship, went over to SmackDown, and he didn't know how to deal with the luxurious lifestyle because he grew up a poor guy, a poor dude, a poor little boy with no money, and now he has more money than he knows how to spend, then more money than he knows what to do with. But he talked about he just wanted to be alone. He just wanted to be alone. He's a very secluded, antisocial person. Not in a bad way, but that's just how he functions. To kind of, offset all the attention that he gets from the world, from the public, he wants to kind of live a secluded lifestyle, to be away from all of that. Because he went from being a kid that couldn't score a girl to save his life to now being a guy that has women being thrown at him every 5 minutes. So he lives very privately. He lives in a place where there's a lot of gates surrounding his house, which is cool. I would honestly do the same thing. He gives viewers a tour of his gym. He has his own personal gym, so he never really has to leave if he doesn't want to. He goes hard in the gym, 24/7. He always goes hard in the gym, and he knew that if he wanted to come back for this match at WrestleMania, that he had to be at 120% in the best shape that he's ever been in. And he said he even mentioned here, even admitted that he doesn't feel 50 years old. He only feels 50 when, like, a younger, attractive woman comes up to him and calls him sir. Like, then he feels like he's 50. That's when he feels old. But other than that, he doesn't feel like he's 50. So then he talks about why he left WWE in 2010. He said it was because he was resentful. He was resentful over a few different things going on at that time in WWE in 2010. And he wasn't getting fair opportunities, which makes sense, and this is no surprise. He's talked about this before. He wasn't getting the opportunities he felt he was owed. He wanted to do things on his own without the help of WWE. He wanted more movie roles. He wanted to kind of do his own thing, and WWE was not giving him that opportunity. WWE is very fucking micromanaged. They're very hands-on. They almost always have to be in control. Always. So unless they approve the project, they're not going to let you do movies and shit like that. He didn't want that, so he did his own thing. He thought he was an awful actor at first. He thought he was terrible, but he knew he wanted to get better, which is commendable. And it was never that he never wanted to go back to WWE. He wasn't like, oh, fuck that place, I never want to go back. He wanted to accomplish other things first and achieve all these other goals that he had in the acting world and beyond before he went back to WWE. But when he did go back in 2014, he felt it just wasn't right. He wasn't prepared. He was in terrible shape. The creative sucked. Just everything about it was very, very lackluster. Even the night that he came back, I remember people complaining that why would they... It was the segment that they brought him back in, like the first opening segment of Raw with Batista and Orton and the Authority went on for like fucking 20 minutes. And then Batista comes out. It was like, oh, and the crowd is already fatigued by that point. It wasn't what it could have been. He was disappointed. Everyone was disappointed, to be honest with you. They didn't bring up the Daniel Bryan thing here, but we all know that was a big part of why Batista's run was not what it could have been. Because people were all up in arms about Daniel Bryan and him being misused, and rightfully so. I was one of those people. But you don't shit on Batista. It's not his fucking fault. Leave the guy alone. So anyway, he talked about how he put zero effort into getting into shape for that 2014 run, and he felt awful. And he knew he wasn't giving the fans what they deserved. He knew that he wasn't giving them what they were owed, Batista at 100%. So it's better this time around, because he only has one match to focus on, whereas with 2014, he came back for a full-on run. I think he was doing house shows, I'm not 100% sure, but he was doing the full-on run, the house shows, Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, everything. He was doing it all, so it was tougher to stay in shape. Now he only has to get in shape for one match, but he knows that it has to be good. He has to deliver, and he's feeling the pressure right now. So he talked about how he was excited to be back in the ring, training. He trained at the Performance Center leading up to WrestleMania. He talked all about this in more detail in the Jericho podcast, too. I cannot recommend that enough. It's a must-listen. And after that exchange on Raw with Triple H, the verbal exchange, where he was like, oh, give me what I want. People made kind of a meme out of it, but I liked it for what it was. It was a hit or miss. I thought it was good. He thought it went well. He stumbled over his words a bit, but Vince praised him for it. He said that helps make it feel more real. You know, if you're so filled up with frustration and all this anger, it feels more real to stumble over your words, because that's what happened in real life, you know? So, you know, he hugs Vince backstage after the exchange. Vince gives his 2 cents. He praised the segment. He thought it went really well. And Batista said, he outright said, I miss wrestling. I missed being here. I missed the WWE. The creative process with WWE is like pulling fucking teeth with them and with these people. But he missed being back in the ring and feeling that instant reaction from the fans, because that's who he does it for. In addition to himself, he does it for the fans. And he loves entertaining people, whether it's acting, wrestling, he loves entertaining. So then we go back to when he left WWE, when he wanted to pursue acting. He struggled at first, but it really wasn't until Guardians of the Galaxy arrived, which a lot of people thought would fail. A lot of people thought would fail at that point. Honestly, I didn't have high hopes either, because it was one of those unknown Marvel films that you didn't know if it was going to be good or not, but they knocked it out of the park, and it quickly became one of my favorite films of all time. And after that went well, he got a lot more opportunities to do more film roles. And not just for like, oh, Henchman 1, Henchman 2, but like actual feature film length roles. Like he had the Henchman role in 007, which was cool, but, you know, he had the role now in Stuber coming up this Friday, which looks to be great, and I can't wait to see it. He had the role in Blade Runner 2049, I think it was called. He had the role in Hotel Artemis, which I thought was really good, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed Hotel Artemis, and I felt it didn't get the accolades it deserved, because it was kind of like an indie film. The budget wasn't great, that's probably why. But yeah, with the more movies he made that were successes, he got more opportunities to do more stuff that he loved, which he really, really enjoyed and did not take for granted. And he said that he has a knack for storytelling, which is why he loves acting so much. It's why he loves wrestling so much. He called WWE and wrestling specifically just an art form. It's more than just the acrobatics and shit like that and the over-the-top dramatics. It's all about telling a story. And he said his current plan, I thought this was very interesting. He said his plan is to be so successful at acting and be the biggest star that he can, so at some point he can make his own movies. Because he realizes right now he's 50. 5 years from now, his phone, I think it will be. I think he's being pretty modest there. But he said, 5 years from now, my phone's not going to be ringing off the hook the same way it is right now. So I should be taking all the opportunities I can to be better, to be bigger. And then when that time comes for me to kind of step away from the silver screen, at least in an on-air role, I can make my own movies. And then he admitted, I thought this was really interesting. So he said that he had a love-hate relationship with his current lifestyle. He's always busy. He's always doing things. He's the ultimate perennial workhorse, is Dave Batista. He's always looking to improve himself and his career and everything else. But he said, he admitted even here that he can't hold the relationships. Now, this was covered, I don't know if they were still together at that point, but he was married for a while the first time. He got married, I think he proposed actually to his first wife, Angie, after WrestleMania 21. And they were married for a while, at least for a few years. And then they divorced because he was on the road so much with WWE, he just couldn't hold a marriage. So they ended up getting divorced. And they're still good friends to this day, even years later, because she was at his last match here for WrestleMania 35. They actually interviewed her at one point. So then, I don't know what happened after that. I think he was in a relationship with a woman named Sarah Jade for a while. They got married in late 2015. But I didn't know this until I saw this doc, but I guess they got separated earlier on in 2019. I did not know that. I had no idea about that. And that's why he said he was with his most recent wife for 9 years. That's a long time. So he probably started seeing her after he divorced his first wife, Angie. They didn't get married. Dave and Sarah didn't get married until probably, again, I think September 2015, I want to say. And then they got separated earlier this year. I don't know if the divorce is official. I didn't see anything about that at all. I don't remember hearing about that. This might have been the first public, what would you call it? The first public outreach? Not outreach. The first public mention of these two not being together anymore. And that's why he said, we grew apart too. We wanted to go in our own separate directions. I'm never home. That's why my marriages fall apart. But I'm willing to live with the sacrifices. That's Dave's big thing. He's very willing to do the sacrifices. His wives may not feel that same way, but he's willing to sacrifice things. And he said, I'm so lonely. And it was honestly kind of sad. It was really sad to hear him talk about this. Saying that he's so lonely, but it's a price that he's willing to pay in order to better his own career and himself. So that was interesting. That was really fucking deep. This got a lot deeper than I thought it would. But anyway, he said getting in shape for WrestleMania is his top priority. His agents are just being kind of a hassle for him at this point, leading up to WrestleMania, because they have all these projects for him and they're booking all this shit. And he's like, no, I got to get in shape. That's my number one priority right now. That wasn't my priority the last time when I went back in 2014 and we fucked up. I enjoyed the run for what it was. But a lot of people are like, oh, he looks in terrible shape. And it wasn't what he hoped it would be. He wants this to be different. And he says that, I have all these people saying these different things to me about, oh, maybe you could do this in addition to the training. He's like, listen, unless you've been there, you don't get it. You don't get what it takes to get ready for a match unless you've done the wrestling. And Batista just fucking gets it. He said that with, again, being the introvert that he is, it's terrifying to him to go out there in front of crowds and perform. But he kind of gets over it once he gets in the ring. He kind of he's lived to deal with it. He has learned to deal with it over the years. Which was interesting to hear him talk about. And he said even Hunter probably knows. And we see Dave talking to Ronda Rousey before Mania, which was cool. But he even said, I think Hunter realizes how much I owe him, how much he means to me, and how much this match means to me. And he talks about how they've always bonded, they've always gotten along, even dating back to their early Evolution days and even before that. But he puts pressure on himself. We hear from his mom here, his ex-wife Angie, and they both say that he is his own worst critic. Nothing is ever good enough for this guy. But she said that he's very proud of him. And she's always been proud of him, not just because of the wrestling and the movies and stuff like that. She's always been his biggest supporter. And his ex-wife, who was there as well, Angie, not his most recent ex-wife, but his first wife, Angie, and I guess they're still really good friends if she was here for the match. I don't think he would have invited her otherwise. She said that he was happy for him. She was very happy for him. She was happy that for all the sacrifices that he made, that he could have closure and he could end this thing on his terms. And they went out and had the match. We see highlights of the match, and Triple H says it was just awesome to be out there with him. And he was really happy that Batista got closure. Batista himself was happy that he got closure. And then to close this thing out, we don't get the big montage of Batista's career and it's this triumphant ending. He just kind of rides off into the sunset. That's what this reminded me of. And he says, I'm okay to step aside to kind of allow the talent of tomorrow to take center stage at this point. And he said, I'm proud of my career. And then we close out this thing with him saying, "I feel like I can retire in peace." And I thought that was a great way to close out this documentary. And then we see a picture of the tweet that he put out right after the match, early Monday morning after WrestleMania 35, where he officially announced that he was retired from WWE. He's done. And Shawn Michaels felt the same way, and he came back. But I think Batista, given how hard-headed he can be with some of the things that I've seen, in a good way, I think he's pretty adamant about this being his final match. And he's not coming back, and I truly respect that. I really do. I think this was the best way for him to go out, and I think it's amazing. I love this doc, like I said before. Thank you guys for sticking with me for the past, 30 minutes. I could talk a lot about Batista, but I thought this was amazing. This review is almost as long as the doc itself. That clocks in at about 57 minutes, 56 minutes. The usual hour for the 24 specials. But it's great. You have to check it out. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Even if you've seen the other docs from Batista on the network or in DVD form from 2009 and 2014 respectively, this is still going out of your way to watch. Worth going out of your way to watch, I should say. They cover everything from his childhood to his evolution days, his history with Triple H coming back for SmackDown 1000, acting, leaving in 2010, his botched run in 2014, coming back in 2019, the match itself, retiring. They cover everything, even stuff I didn't think they would cover, like relationships and stuff like that. So amazing stuff here. 2 thumbs up to Dave, WWE, for putting this thing together. I highly recommend it. Thank you guys, like I just said before, for checking out this review, for sticking with me for 30 plus minutes here to hear me ramble on about Batista, the Dream Chaser, this edition of WWE 24. If you liked my review, be sure to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content here on the channel. And this might be, this won't be the last network and show that I do. This is going up today, Tuesday. Sorry for the delay. It just took me a while to watch. I had a lot of stuff going on this morning. But they're going to be doing a Chronicle, actually, which is a lot like the 24, but they're shorter, and they kind of encompass a certain period of time from like one pay-per-view to the next. And they're doing one on Saturday after the Evolve special on the network on Ricochet, which is really cool. I don't know about after the pay-per-view on Sunday. I don't know about after Extreme Rules. I don't think so as of right now. But the Ricochet one, I'm going to try to watch Sunday and then review it Sunday. Or maybe put it up on Monday, because I'm leaving for vacation next Monday. And there won't be any new, I don't think anyway, any new Network and Chills until I get back in 2 weeks. Not even 2 weeks, actually like 2.5 weeks. I come back the 25th. I leave the 15th and I'm back the 25th, so I'll be gone for a while. But anyway, guys, we'll tend to that when it arrives. We'll build that bridge when the time comes, whatever the fuck that idiom is. But at this rate, I gotta get going. I'm starving. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.